I work with a group of people, and we're called the Scottish Interfaith Group on Domestic Abuse. We're a voluntary organisation, and we came together over 20 years ago. The way we came together was, interestingly, it was a Catholic bishop who's long since has died a long time ago, and he was very keen that our church was seen to show zero tolerance to domestic abuse. And when Women's Aid opened their Renfrewshire office in Paisley, where I'm from, he went to visit them, and he asked me to get together a group of church people to do something about it and have a conference. Now, I very soon discovered that all the Christian churches were saying the same thing about domestic abuse. So an inter-church group was first of all brought together. And we started having, we got together, got to know one another, and started having conferences and study days about domestic abuse in all sorts of different places. We had a study day in Glasgow, we had a conference in Glasgow, Perth, Dundee, and conferences are fine, but it's a very expensive thing to run. So I had to find other ways to do it as a voluntary organisation with very little cash. So we had heard that the YMCA many years before had a shoe exhibition, and each pair of shoes represented someone who'd been hurt or who died through domestic abuse. So we travelled to Edinburgh and asked them, since they weren't doing that anymore, is it okay if we did it? And they were only too glad to give us permission. So we put together a collection of shoes with real comments. Obviously, these shoes hadn't belonged to people who'd been hurt or who died, but they represented those people. And shoes are quite evocative. If you've ever seen Holocaust pictures, you know what it's like when you see a heap of shoes, you know that represents a lot of people. Well, when you see the pair of shoes with a comment beside them, it kind of does something to you. If you see a pair of Child's Wellington boots and the comment beside it is, my mum's got no life, it actually says an awful lot more than those few words. So we have a collection of real shoes with real comments that came from people who had been hurt beside those shoes. Now, as time went on, it became obvious that it wasn't just the Christian churches who had something strong to say about domestic abuse. It was all faiths. So quite organically, we became interfaith, and we have representatives of all different kinds of faith. And that's been very enriching. And it's a great collaboration because it takes you to other areas, other faiths, and we learn a lot. And also it takes us into lots of other communities. So we have various shoe exhibitions now. We have the real shoes with their comments, which you can imagine is quite a big thing to carry about. So we got some money from another organisation, and we got pop-up banners made. And on these pop-up banners, we have pictures of the shoes and their comments. It comes together in 8 pop-up banners. We also have quite big cards with pictures of the shoes and a comment if a smaller area was chosen to have an exhibition. We have different forms of the exhibition that can be shown in different places. Those are just some small shots of a variety of the materials that we have. We have been to a variety of places all over the country with the exhibition. You can imagine all kinds of churches, from Paisley Abbey to St Mary's Cathedral in Edinburgh, and all points in between. We have also been to the Scottish Parliament a few times. We've had a lunchtime event there, and we've had a few exhibitions. We also, through collaboration with the Episcopal Church, who had a link with a prison, we got into 2 prisons, and we were in Greenock Prison and Shotts Prison. Now, when we got in there, we did 2 days there. We went for 1 day to speak to staff, to do the training with staff so that they knew what the prisoners were receiving. And then on the second day, we worked with the prisoners. It was different in both places. In Shotts Prison, it's all men, so they were brought in category groups, and we worked with them individually. In Greenock Prison, the men came separately from the women in the education wing. But what was very significant for us that day, when it was presented to the men, it was during education time, and they were given the choice of coming through to look at the exhibition and speak to us, and they did. But when we dealt with the women, they came as a group, and we took them as a class. and we showed them a short video that had been made by Women's Aid. And the significant thing for us was those women, every one of them sat and nodded through that film as if, I know exactly what that is. I've been there. I was that soldier. It affected us seeing their reaction to it. So we will go anywhere with this exhibition. It can also be borrowed. We loan it out free of charge. And we have actually posted boxes of shoes to England because someone was very keen to set up an exhibition. Because of our links with other churches, we've been in synagogues and mosques. We've been in all sorts of different places with the exhibition, and we'll go and talk to any group anywhere. Also, we got funding and we made a short film. We made a 9-minute film, and it's called Walking Through Domestic Abuse, and it's really about the shoes. We have got engaged a local filmmaker, and it took us about a year. I have great respect now for filmmakers. It took a year to make this 9-minute film, but it's available on YouTube. And though our title is quite unwieldy, Scottish Interfaith Group on Domestic Abuse, if you take the first letter of some of those words, you get IFGODA, if God A. And if you do www.ifgoda.org, it will take you to our website and you can see the film. But it's also available on YouTube. And we have taken that many places. We launched that film in Paisley, and then we showed it at the City Chambers, working jointly with Amina. Our Muslim member is a member of Amina, so we have a strong link with Muslim Women's Organisation. And we feel very strongly that collaboration is the way forward. Linking with this group, for instance, will make us stronger and give us more links to other places. Recently, because of International Women's Day and also World Day of Prayer, which came the day before, I discovered there were 3 churches in my area doing services on World Day of Prayer. So I contacted them, and one of them responded and said I could put up an exhibition. So it's been there for a fortnight, and I went to the World Day of Prayer service, went into the hall for a cup of tea after it with our leaflets, and went round the tables and was able to speak to people and leave a leaflet with my phone number on it so they'd a contact if they wanted to have an exhibition. We don't have a lot of funding, but sometimes people are very kind to us, and that's how we got the funding for the new exhibition of the pop-up banners. And the way we look at the work that we do is we collaborate as much as possible with other groups, but we're in the business of awareness raising, and what we do is sow seeds. We sow seeds to get people talking about domestic abuse. We feel it's really a crying shame if someone is standing in a church suffering from domestic abuse and not talking about it. In fact, anywhere, but particularly in churches, which should be a supportive environment. So we see ourselves as sowing seeds. The Lord will water them, and we hope that something strong and good will grow from that. Also, we have always found anywhere we have an exhibition, this always happens, someone passing will come and tell us their story of how they got out of domestic abuse. So there's always hope, always hope. One of the things we do when we do a presentation is a very short drama with pieces of silk. One person sits in the chair, the other person representing the one who was domestically abused, and 2 people have a sheet of paper. One person reads out negative comments of how someone got into the situation of domestic abuse, and the second sheet of paper has the positive story of how someone got out of the situation. And as the story is read, the person is gradually covered up with pieces of silk until they're invisible. Then the positive statements are read and they are gradually uncovered. And those pieces of silk are put in front and form a rainbow of hope. So we will always give a message of hope. There are many ways out of domestic abuse when people are ready. But mostly we want to get people talking about it in as many places as possible.